another QGA-ish via different move order in a game between Magnus and Pragg, which, as is the norm, started once again by the c4, c5, 4 knights line. Magnus once again goes e3. This is the line where he lost to Nedved after Nedved played e5, right? That game went e5, bishop e2, d5, cd5, knight d5, castles, bishop e7, bishop d5, and white ended up overpressing and eventually losing. But Pragg goes for a much more safe option, goes e3, e6, d4, d5. And after a3, I had this conversation with Jan when we were doing sieges, and Jan informed me that it's very much the current understanding here to go dc4 and then a6, because the other options aren't as clear and don't seem to be equalizing as comfortably these days, whereas this looks like a very decent QGA where white committed to both knight c3 and a3. And in particular, knight c3 is not always the move you want to make this early in QGA positions. But Magnus is playing very quickly, so I guess he had a pretty decent idea of how Pragg will react to various things. He goes bishop d3.
That's right. The main line is just a castle. And yeah, I haven't seen bishop d3 before exactly here, I must say.
Yeah, bishop d3, I guess you are kind of threatening to play what is very close to a pure Foreman. I think it's called the Foreman. The ideas of, let's say if you play bishop e7, which is not a very important move, we've prevented the queen trade, and then we want to push for these types of ideas. Pragg goes cd4, ed4, and interestingly just goes g6 here, also showing another side to this. Black isn't committed to developing the bishop normally to e7, and with an Isolani on d4, it obviously makes a ton of sense to try to get it to g7, where it will help generating pressure against the pawn on d4. Magnus goes bishop g5, bishop g7, and just blitzes out bishop b4.
I'm surprised that they're blitzing. I'm not familiar with this,
Neither
kind of branch of the line. Maybe there have been games recently, or kind of core games.
Knight e7 has been played, and Magnus just blitzes out h2, h4.
This is some deep preparation, clearly.
Provokes h6, because I guess this is kind of uncomfortable now that knight f6 is a move, and also you really cannot castle into h5. There's no way you can afford to just ignore this. Yeah, so Pragg understandably plays h6, Magnus takes, goes queen d2.
Okay.
And
so he's stopped black from castling, but if black plays bishop g7, is Magnus going long?
I actually like king f8, king g7.
Maybe king f8.
Yeah. Although
g4 might come and trap your bishop.
g4, g5, or let's say bishop c2, knight e4 is worrying me a little bit. Yeah.
Feels like black should be completely fine. I don't really see too many plans for white other than at some point d5 or maybe g4, g5.
He spent 15 minutes. Yeah, he spent 20 minutes on knight e7, which is quite a lot of time, but we like the move, so we don't really mind that all that much. h4, h6 was played quickly, of course, no thinking here. And then knight d5 took him an additional 15 minutes. Okay. But Magnus is also thinking now. Magnus spent quite a bit of time on h5. G5, a very natural reply by Pragg. I don't hate his position, to be honest. I think now in particular we can just like walk towards g7.
Or even castle sometimes, if you need to.
But I like controlling the h7 square with the rook, because if we castle, we very often will have to play king g7 and rook h8 very quickly. Anyway, if the bishop drops back and we start facing queen d3 threats, which is why I like the king f8 g7 maneuver slightly more. And then it doesn't really feel like we're going to be without plans.
Especially if I have to exchange minor pieces, then I'm not too happy. He's played knight e5 immediately, which I guess does justify having pushed h5, so the white h pawn on h4 wasn't on pre. Yeah, I guess bishop d7 is maybe slightly harder to achieve now, and if you play king f8, Magnus could consider kind of chopping on d5 and playing f4.
And going f4, yeah. I like this. Yeah, I think this actually is more flexible than castling either side, and demands sort of more of a reply. Has, after some thought, after knight e5, bishop g7, he has gone for one of the plans we were mentioning, bishop d5 and castles. Now f2, f4, very much on the cards. But even if you play it slower, let's say black castles, we go rook e1, bishop e6, and we play in, I don't know, some sort of positional fashion. Even like rook e3, rook fe1, and then we think about where to put this guy. Even those aren't that comfortable for black. because it's so difficult to figure out what you're doing against the knight on e5.
Yeah, this exact pawn structure, the knights do quite a good job of fighting against the bishops. I guess eventually black plays like rook f8 and hopes to play f6, but knight g6 is always a question.
Exactly, yeah. And perhaps, having gotten the rook to e3, now we can aim for, because I would very much like to be able to recapture on f4 specifically with the knight. I think I like it more than the rook. It generates sort of more control and maybe even more threats on the king side. The rook on f4 looks beautiful, but doesn't really do nearly as much. Thought for quite a while here and made a move bishop e6 f5, which you can understand from a sort of a purely conceptual point of view. Like maybe it belongs on this diagonal more than it belongs on e6. E6 was a very passive square, but yeah, it very specifically runs into queen d1, and you might have to put it back, losing some tempi, because both queen f3 and queen b3 are suddenly quite annoying threats, which weren't in the position a move ago.
I don't know. I didn't even know what he was getting ready for, like f4 block with g4 or something. But
maybe that was the intention. But specifically to have this option and to maybe try to play queen h4 next move and not allow any files to be opened on. Well, and he has now missed a tactic as well. He played rook e8 quite quickly, which I think explains the previous move at least. He was trying to do this, but this now is very strong.
Yeah,
king f7, I guess just rook f3, and you start losing material because g2, g4 is coming in hot. Yeah, this looks horrible.
Still g4, yeah.
This looks horrible. So after knight f7, you have to play queen d7, and you've just misplaced a very important central pawn for nothing. Yeah, things aren't right, and you're not really emotionally involved enough to correct them. So you become this kind of a automaton.
Yeah,
performing actions you still know reasonably well how to perform, and in the meantime, knight f7 has not been found.
Wow, that's I think a bigger shock.
This is an amazing reprieve for Pragg. The position remains very annoying, but this is an improvement. Even though, like, what you have to play here is still very difficult, because
bishop e6 again.
No, maybe? I think you might have to take on e5.
Oh, that's
because like if you play bishop e6 here, you really should not have been playing bishop f5 earlier.
And taking on e5 now, I guess computers will say that purely because knight takes f7 is an even bigger threat than it was.
Yeah, so we get here and then we play like rook c8, queen d6, king g7, and we chill, well, to a degree of chill. And actually, you can imagine this setup being somewhat useful for us, because maybe let me make some indifferent moves here.
Yeah, but once you see that white knight getting around to c5, he plays it. Right?
Yeah.
Once you see knight a4, knight c5, then you maybe, I was going to say, start to reject lines like this. But
and I think the point here is that he would like to play b6, but then suddenly you realize you can't actually support that pawn.
Yeah, b8, knight c6.
Yeah, because you run into forks in this one, and now both queen b3 and even rook b3 to a degree. The issue with queen b3 is that we might have to trade queens. Like if black makes some kind of a sensible move here, I don't know, rook c8 or whatever, in order to win that pawn, you have to trade queens, and then maybe black
activates.
With the bishop pair, maybe has some drawing chances, even though
knight a4.
Like I'm not a huge fan either way. Not a shocker. Not a shocker. We did think it was logical.
And again, bishop takes e5 is unappetizing. Last resort type of move.
Yeah, but now, we just go like queen d2 here, and we do play f1 next move very often, and it's just oof. Eventually put the knight on c5 in one tempo.
Queen c7, is that allowing the pawn grab?
Yeah, I think so.
Is there a trick?
Took on b6, which, as we know, if Pragg finds bishop takes e5 there, potentially throws away maybe most of his advantage.
Maybe all, right? We thought that actually white had to be slightly careful.
Rook b8, and Pragg, I think, will be forced by circumstances to find it, because rook b8 already played knight a4 blitzed out by Magnus, and if you allow knight c5 here, if you don't do something sort of right this moment, if you allow white to one more move to play knight c5 or rook b3 or really just about anything, you are lost both tactically and strategically, which very often forces you to find those maybe difficult moves, because like, what else can you do? Which is also completely fine. d4 would allow queen b4. The squares I was offering are just much worse than before. But even here, the position would become Very difficult for white to completely control. Like we won bishop f5, e5 will hang, and the engine wasn't really hating that, but queen a5 is even cleaner. We want to play d4 next move. Knight d5 is...
This is a big threat,
Yeah. Maybe we just play like bishop e6 here or something.
Bishop c or e6.
Or c6, yeah, I don't know. Queen d1 played, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, it's the most logical.
We knew this was coming, yeah. We were absolutely certain this was coming.
Can white ask any questions at all in this line? I don't really see it. Bishop g4, we have to play.
Yeah, f3 is strictly the only move, because otherwise you lose material.
Bishop d7, we pretty much
Bishop d7 absolutely forces knight c3. Queen c5 check. You have to go to the h file. I guess h1 is somewhat better than h2, because at least queen takes e5 isn't a check.
But now, do we have any options at all?
It just looks completely fine for black, honestly.
And it all looks extremely forced.
Yeah, and yeah, just as I said, it's just very, very linear.
Yeah.
Just move by move, you can rule out everything else and get there. Doubting himself, but it's not necessarily such a, you shouldn't be reading too much into it. Yeah, the entire thing is blitzed out up to knight c3 so far.
Okay.
Yeah, queen c5, the only thing. Oh, well, this is a study.
Well, okay.
Poor Prague.
After queen c5.
Prague. Yeah. So in this position, we go king h2.
Yep.
d4, rook e4.
Oh, this is like a tightrope act.
Yeah.
And white has nothing better than...
Well, the main line is just absolutely insane.
Rookie.
The main line I'm currently reading on my screen is just absolutely insane.
Peter, this is...
Queen c7, f6, king h7, and this is somehow a draw. I guess...
And there's queen f8, and then you sack the queen and...
Yeah, and this is a draw.
What is chess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then again, I think he will be... D takes e3, though, is just such a difficult move to make here.
Yeah.
Prague either missed rook e4 or has calculated this, or neither, and then he's in trouble. Because he doesn't play bishop c6, he goes d4 very quickly, and now rook e4 is on the board, and it feels like you no longer have options. You have to go d takes, you have to go c2. Yeah, the king on h2 is also not very safe, so it feels like you have to go for this position, and this position shouldn't really be that much of a problem, honestly, with the king as open as it is. Magnus will still play on. And if you imagine this king kind of catapulting itself over to a5, even if you lose something on the king side, it becomes somewhat exciting, but I don't know if you ever get that. Okay, d6, queen d7 on the board. And yeah, Prague could go for glory here, but I think in particular in the view of what happened over the past few days, it has to be exceedingly unlikely that he goes for glory here.
I think less than 5% chance that he'll play c2.
I mean, if nothing else was playable, he would, simply because nobody really... I mean, I feel very self-conscious saying sentences like nobody wants to resign, because obviously some people very much want to resign in every single position, and even do occasionally. But yeah.
Prague has played c2.
Young man.
Wow.
I am in awe.
If he finds his way through that kind of maze of complications, that's going to be...
I am in such awe of this.
I don't understand.
How do you choose this over the other thing?
Hats off to Prague.
Yeah.
Well played.
We know it's a draw because the engine told us as much, but is it maybe simpler because we can go before queen c7? Does queen c7 not make a draw? Yeah. Just briefly, because I feel like Magnus will think for much of his remaining time here, choosing between f4 and e6. He doesn't really have very many other choices, but I think he probably by this point knows e6 is a forced draw, and not a very difficult one either. Yeah. Hang on a second. E6, queen c7, g3, c1, queen, e7.
Now there might be queens. I have to say 1 c2. Queen e8. Although this is still queen c8.
Yeah, this is weird, right? Because we get this
super weird.
This really strange position, which I don't think white is running any risks.
Actually, maybe white's just winning.
Maybe white's winning, yeah, just straight up winning.
That one at least white can play, but like you say, it's probably hard to avoid.
Yeah, he's played a 4. That was very expected. I think, in terms of comparing this one and this one, the other one is a draw, whereas here, perhaps there is no perpetual. Perhaps black does take on f6, you play queen c5.
Yeah.
And we play queen ending, which we assume is a draw, but...
Prague, luckily again for him, he's got to find these moves strictly. forced.
Yeah, so here, I don't think there's a choice. I mean, queen c4 apparently is also a draw, but yeah, nobody does that.
Which move would this be? This wouldn't be before move 40. So after move 40, maybe you play queen c4, but not before. Multi-purpose move. Unless he... Yeah, okay, he does play queen c7. I was going to say, unless he misses queen d7 or something in that line. Thought he was forcing a perpetual, but he's found it.
Yeah, queen c7 played. Magnus also has absolutely no choice. If you don't play f6, queen f8, you lose. The simplest way for black to create a threat here is just to play queen d1 takes h5 check, and then if we need to, we can play queen g6 and just cover g7. So yeah, we don't really have any leeway to pass here with white, unsurprisingly. f6 will be played, queen f8 will be played. This will be more 40. Pragg will have a choice of either resigning or playing queen takes e5. So all of this will appear on the board. And yeah, the question for Magnus will be sort of where to put the king. I'm pretty sure it's d3. Pragg will now think. As expected. We knew this position was appearing on the board.
Yeah,
before it has.
These guys are beasts. Just so accurate, both Magnus and Pragg.
I mean, first of all, Pragg chose here to go c2 and not rook takes c5, which in itself is quite a remarkable decision, having 5 minutes on the clock. And then both of them very, very cleanly found the absolute best line of the position, which starts with b4, and then Magnus just allows black to get a second queen to create mating threats. And in this position, the only way forward is to give one of your queens away and then pick up the rook on e5 with check. Magnus didn't play a4, which I thought was kind of a logical move to immediately start doing something. Instead, he played queen e8 here. I guess taking some squares under control and also indirectly protecting the pawn. Actually, that's not true. That's not what the point is, right? We're also keeping in touch with the f7 pawn. Pragg played queen f1 check. The king went forward, king g7, check, king g8, check, king g7. Interesting that Magnus actually chooses to make a quiet move with the king on g7 and not on g8.
This one could go for a long time. Queen endings are notoriously tricky. Black could be defending for a while with lots of checks later. Queen e5. Queen
e5 check played, and king g8 really the only move that makes any sense, even optically. Like everything else allows white additional options, which you absolutely don't want to do.
Well, kind of started the race, and he's going to play b5 at the right time.
Yeah, you can play like queen g1 here, king d6. You can just take on g2. White goes b5, a b, a6.
Yeah. Very close.
Yeah. Queen d4 chosen by Magnus. I assume we take. I assume we want our passers to be passers, right? We just go.
Yeah. We do a bit of counting, and then White's creating that pass pawn anyway, so we might as well create some counterplay.
Yeah, like
no, wait, no. Now.
I think I play queen a8. It looks I play queen a8, and then you have to choose whether
I take the cheap one, or
you can trade g4a, but then on a board as open as this, we should not be losing. Or you can play king b6 g2, and once again, like this is a bit too far progressed for white to have. We'll watch, because I think this one is more clear cut. And yeah, Pragg does, I think, very correctly. You do want activity more than you want like some kind of an innate belief that you will give a perpetual to this king, even though you probably will. But like you'd much rather have a pawn on g2 here. That would feel a lot better if you have a pawn on g2 here. So he plays g4. Magnus now has to choose between ba and b6. I don't know what the difference necessarily is. I guess both of them should be.
b6 feels inherently a bit more risky.
Yeah.
Also, not sure what
so you do something like this and you pretend. I don't know how you pretend, though. Like, what if I play queen f2 here? Queen g4. And then b7 maybe. And with queen f2 is probably not right. Yeah, I'm worried about b7, right? Because g2, b8, there's a mate on g8. I can't really do that.
Queen a8 is automatic.
So queen a8, and the engine tries like getting the king over to h2, but I'm pretty sure we will be able to find some activity for it.
That's really clever, though, I've got to say.
Yeah, like it goes like this. Yeah, it goes king 6, king e5, but now we play queen c6 quite happily and start giving checks of our own. It's a draw. Like we know it's a draw.
The white pawn will.
Yeah, I think the human way to play this for a win, if there is a way to play this for a win, I think you just go queen g4, queen g3. You play like king b5 in this position, and you hope somehow that your opponent doesn't give you a perpetual immediately. Yeah, like the queen has to stay in touch with the g1 square. Black has a queen on the 8 protected, like maybe king c7, but queen d8 is not really a threat. I just go h5, h4, and so on. Like why am I supposed to be worse at all here as black?
This is one. I mean, this is not fully without risk for white either. Like if you miscalculate and get the queens off, then I mean black promotes the g pawn, the h pawn's running.
Yeah, I guess you play some of the queen b6, but there's no way you can actually force the king back to the 8th, right? I just stay on g7, h7 squares. There's no way you can create a threat of queen b8 check that I don't have an answer for.
Magnus playing on in his game.
If you get now, there's a very wide choice. Like you can even ignore king f4, king g3. It's still a draw somehow.
If it gets to h2, then you start to worry as black.
Yeah,
because then queen b6, queen b8 is.
Yeah, but I guess you just you play either queen c6 or queen f3 or something, and kind of force the issue of trading this for this. Queen f3 in particular, I think, is just a very solid choice. Just popping the question.
How does white actually arrange that a for g now? That exchange.
Well, you can go queen d8 a8, I think.
Yeah.
Just very simply because I don't think we can
just direct.
Yeah. Like the threats along the back rank are a little bit too strong for us to fool around. But we take and we go g1, and I guess Magnus goes for something like this actually. Yeah, you choose a good square in the center somewhere. At least like queen e4 check, and then maybe queen. It's difficult because like if you play a6, it feels like you just lose it to checks.
Yeah, maybe queen d5, the previous move.
Yeah, my hope was king g7 and we go queen d4, and then we get to play a discovered check. Yeah, queen f3 played in the meantime, and Magnus can continue doing nothing. Like black also has no threats, but king h7, because you still have to play a8 if you want to play on, and now in this position you don't start with a check at all. Yeah, like you don't actually have a check.
You lose a tempo compared.
Yeah, I mean a6 is still obviously just a draw because black, with the white pawn already on a6, white runs precisely zero risks. But he just was sort of unimpressed with what Pragg was doing, and kind of mentally checked out from looking for the best move, because I think he missed knight f7 at such speed as well. Like he did it instantly. And rook f1 happened. Yeah, rook f1 happened pretty much in a blink of an eye. And normally he doesn't miss tactics like this. And it's just gone because after queen d7, I thought maybe the only chance is queen d7, but in this position we can even take with the pawn because d4, knight d4 is very, very painful. And then he just calculated cleanly and precisely and played quickly, and just a very, very impressive feat of defensive resourcefulness.
Yeah, hasn't put a single foot wrong.
Queen d8 on the board. He's choosing between g7 and h7. There's no difference.
Yeah, g7 looks.
But just like no difference in terms of objective evaluation. But I think you pretty much always choose g7. There's no reason to choose anything else. g7 also really makes sure that he plays a8. Because you can't really play queen d4 and lose to queen f6 check. Like you no longer have a choice, which is very useful in Pragg's position. Just making sure that you don't have to calculate any extra stuff. Was he offered a draw?
Yeah, it did look like Magnus is looking over at the score sheet. He was looking over at something.
King h7 chosen. Still a draw, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, weirdly, the engine goes queen c3 check here, and the response to queen c3 check in this position is for some reason queen d4.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Oh, because we can
play g1.
You cover all the checks.
We can play g1.
Beautiful.
After king f4.
Oh my god, I think we're going to see this.
I love this so much. Come on, queen c3 check. Come on.
Problem is queen e4 and it's still probably just a draw.
Yeah, no, this is still a draw, of course. But like I want queen c3 check on the board now. I want Magnus to be like shaken a bit when he realizes g1 is coming and he has no checks.
He's going to play queen c3 for sure.
Whoa.
There we go, Peter. It's on the board.
This is so great.
And look at Magnus. He's panicking. He's like calculating before he's written his move down.
No, he's smirking as well. He's enjoying this. Magnus is enough of an artist to actually enjoy the fact that g1 is playable next move. Showing this. Yeah, Magnus will just play queen d4. It's still a dead draw. Like the h pawn is way too far. The a pawn is too close. You still give a perpetual here. Nothing changed. In reality, nothing really changed. But
queen d4 or maybe king d6.
Yeah, people are asking if queen d4 can be met by f6 check. But then you've you can, but I don't think it changed anything. Okay, you want to. No, but this is the same. Like I can go king d5 and then queen f3, I can play queen e4 check. We're not winning this.
Can I even meet queen d4 just for artistic value with g1? And queen d7.
Yeah.
Oh no, but wait, now we have lost. Okay, king g8. Sorry. This is I mean, nobody ever does this, but
king g8. Yeah, queen d4 played. Yeah, Magnus doesn't really want to. Like he's done now. He knows he shouldn't really fool around too much.
Yeah, I think we're racing towards the handshake now.
Yeah, Pragg also knows this isn't a very, very obvious draw. So I don't think Pragg will now pretend for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Like just go king c4, a6, a7. It's too close.
Yeah, way too close. And I think Kokesh against Aronian also is going to be a draw, but let's stick with this one for now until what I'm assuming is going to be a handshake. Yeah, just all the checks.
No, fantastic game. Yeah, it definitely featured some mistakes in the early running. Pragg maybe did not react to the opening novelty in the best fashion. Found himself in a bit of a rut, and honestly, I want to kind of retract those statements because in this entire game, the only two moves I want to criticize are bishop f5 and rook e8.
Yeah.
Because we know that black, for some reason, is not even worse after rook c8 here because Sese told us so.
Mm-hmm.
And then after bishop f5, queen g1, already the position is difficult. You maybe just have to admit you were wrong and put it back. And rook e8 was pretty much losing to knight f7. We do know that is true.
Yeah.
But his reaction to bishop b4 was maybe not the most ambitious, but it was definitely sensible. And if this position is not worse, why should we be too sharply critical of what he's done in the run-up to it? And once this position appeared on the board, I think it was just perfect. He played it absolutely perfectly.